Hello. In this example, we have to simplify a complex fraction of 1 minus x to the negative second out of 1 minus 4 times x to the negative first plus 3 times x to the negative second. And the reason it is a complex fraction is because it has variables to the negative powers, and if you remember, a to the negative n becomes positive when we move it into denominator, so it will be positive when we have 1 out of a to the n. So let's rewrite this expression with positive exponents. In numerator we have 1 minus x to the negative second becomes 1 out of x to the second, out of 1 minus x to the negative 1 will get a positive exponent when it's in denominator, so let's move x into denominator. 4 will remain in numerator because it has positive exponent, so we have 4 out of x plus 3 times x to the negative second. The negative second exponent will become positive in denominator, so let's move the variable of x into denominator and we will get x to the second. 3 will remain in numerator because 3 is to the positive power of 1, so we will have 3 out of x to the second. So this complex fraction is 1 minus 1 out of x squared out of 1 minus 4 out of x plus 3 out of x to the second. I'm going to simplify this fraction by multiplying numerator and denominator by least common denominator. In numerator we have 1 minus x to the second, so we need x to the second for the first denominator. In denominator we have 1 minus 4 out of x. This 1 power of x is included in the second power of x that we already have in LCD, plus 3 out of x to the second. Well, we already have x to the second, so our least common denominator is x to the second. Let's multiply numerator by x to the second and denominator by x to the second. Let's distribute x to the second in numerator and we will get 1 times x to the second minus 1 out of x to the second times x to the second out of, let's distribute x to the second into the denominator. We will get 1 times x to the second minus 4 out of x times x to the second plus 3 out of x to the second times x to the second. So let's simplify. In numerator we will get 1 times x to the second, which is x to the second, minus the second term is 1 out of x to the second times x to the second. X to the second and x to the second will cancel and we have just 1, so x squared minus 1 is in numerator. Out of, in denominator we have 1 times x to the second, this is x to the second, minus 4 out of x times x to the second. This x in denominator will cancel with the second power and we have minus 4x left over, plus the last term is 3 out of x to the second times x to the second. Something over itself will cancel out, so x squares will cancel out and we are left with 3. So this is a solution, but it's not simplified. We can factor numerator and denominator. So let's factor numerator, which is x squared minus 1. This is a difference of squares because 1 can be written as 1 to the second. So this will factor into x minus 1 times x plus 1. Let's factor denominator, which is x squared minus 4x plus 3. And in order to do so, we multiply leading coefficient times the last number, so we have 1 times 3. The product is 3. List all of the factor pairs. 3 is a prime number, so it only has 1 and 3. Since the product is positive, we look for sum, and we need the sum to add up to -4. -1 and -3 will give us -4 as a sum, and positive 3 as a product. Since the leading coefficient is 1, we can jump into a shortcut and have x minus 1 times x minus 3 as our factor pair. But you can always rewrite negative 4x as a sum of negative 1x minus 3x and factor by grouping. So we can rewrite our fraction as x squared minus 1 squared factors into x minus 1 times x plus 1 out of denominator, where x squared minus 4x plus 3 factors into x minus 1 times x minus 3. So we get x minus 1 times x plus 1 out of x minus 1 times x minus 3. We have a common factor of x minus 1 out of x minus 1, so x minus 1 will cancel with x minus 1, and we are left with x plus 1 out of x minus 3, and this is our solution. That's all.